It's been a couple of weeks since the Starfield Direct, and ever since then, all enthusiasm for Starfield seems to have completely fallen off the map. No one's talking about this game at all. Nobody's hyped for it. Nobody's addressing it at all. This was allegedly a game that was supposed to compete with Tears of the Kingdom for Game of the Year, and of course that wasn't true. That was never going to be true. It was just simply never going to happen. Like, Tears of the Kingdom doesn't actually have any competition for Game of the Year, even though that there are a lot of people who are desperately trying to pretend it does, because they really want to downplay the fact that Nintendo is so far ahead of the industry, the rest of the industry, that there's really no competition for them at all. So, Tears of the Kingdom is coming out. Its only real competition for Game of the Year are other Nintendo games. Pikmin 4, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and those games can't really compete with that either, like, by the looks of things at this point. So, like, we are in this weird position where, Bethesda games, the big new AAA, like, Bethesda RPG, like, the open worlds RPG, right? The open universe thing, the No Man's Sky knockoff, the biggest RPG ever. This thing is coming out. It's supposed to be the next big thing, and it's not getting any traction. We are at that point, I think, where the older people who spent like the last 20 years hyping up PlayStation, hyping up Final Fantasy, hyping up hyping up their IPs, hyping up like Bethesda, the people who hyped up Skyrim, 10 years ago, are older now and don't necessarily want to put like hundreds of hours into a big AAA game like this, right? Because they're going to get bored of it, right? These games don't have the capacity to keep you interested for that long. And I think I had this experience when I played like New Vegas on the other day, right? I decided like, okay, let's play New Vegas. I don't have anything else going on right now. Let's get into New Vegas and see how I enjoy it. So like I played it, and it kind of dawns on me while I'm playing this that like, wow, Breath of the Wild, Zelda is better than this. Like this game, which is supposedly a top of the line Fallout game, the best 3D one they've ever made, it's not capturing my attention because there's nothing all that spectacular about it. Like, when you compare this to Zelda, like, Zelda comes out on top. It's really, really not even close. And as a result of that, if you really think about it, like, in any way, like, way, shape, or form, like, Fallout New Vegas is absolutely one of the games that people point to when talking about how these kind of open world Western RPGs are the best game in the industry. And if even something like this, a top of the line product, cannot compete with Nintendo, you have a real problem. Like, we are at that point now where Nintendo is simply better than other companies, better than other game developers, and you just have a significant portion of the community that doesn't want to admit it, that doesn't want to acknowledge it at all. Like, whenever Tears of the Kingdom comes up, in casual conversation, like I saw this happen on Arcade of Law, like, the immediate response from a lot of people is to, like, try and say, like, oh, it's overrated. But that isn't true. It's not true at all. And most people either don't notice it or are beginning to understand that, like, people have wildly different perspectives on this kind of stuff. Some people like it and some people hate it. However, those of us who dig a little bit deeper and look into why other people hate it eventually come to the realization that other people only hate these games out of like a sense of contempt and disgust at Nintendo due to decades of being trained to hate them by the corrupt gaming media, right? Like, nobody is hating on Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda, Nintendo for an actual genuine reason. It is entirely because they are expected to do so by society, because these are games for children, and adults don't play games for children, right? That's really the only justification for Starfield or for PlayStation and Xbox in general at this point, is that, like, I'm a grown adult and I don't play games for children, right? That's what the enthusiasm for Starfield essentially boils down to, is that this idea that Tears of the Kingdom is inferior due to being targeted towards children, and it simply isn't true. It hasn't been true like ever. I would argue, but like I think it's becoming more and more apparent every generation that Nintendo has that kind of like cross generation Disney appeal, right? That it appeals to adults as well as kids, right? And I think most people aren't really willing to admit that. Like, I think people are willing to die on this hill that Nintendo is for kids without really stopping to like, make an actual comparison between Disney and, other companies. Like what made Disney, such a big name to begin with before they fell off, like in the past decade or so. Like, what made them such a top tier talent? And, it was their creativity, it was their charm, it was their originality, and it was the fact that their movies are so well produced that fans of all ages can get into them. Like, I watched The Great Mouse Detective recently for the first time in years on Prime Video, and I find myself like every weekend, like just booting it up again and like putting it on in the background while I work. I just find it to be a pleasant, quick experience, right? And I'm watching this movie more than I am like actual like most mature movies, right? It's something that I actually like. It's something that actually suits my needs. It appeals to my interests. It is a good movie, right? Better than other films and live action films. And I don't think I think Disney films will acknowledge, like Disney fans will acknowledge that they feel the same way about their favorite Disney films. Like I'm not even sure I would call The Great Mouse Detective my favorite, but I'm sure like that is a commonly accepted thing that Disney is an extremely talented company that put out lots of great animated classics or great classics in general. Why can we not acknowledge the same is true for Nintendo? Why do we always have to do this caveat that like, Ocarina of Time was pretty good for back when it came out, or the 3D gaming was innovative, but that controller, that N64 controller was garbage. Super Mario Sunshine had bad voice acting. Pikmin is too niche. Wind Waker looked cartoony. Like, enough with the nonsensical complaints and actually talk about the products as a product. Actually talk about how much entertainment value these games have. When you do that, when you really start evaluating just what these games offer, what they do, the stories they tell, the experience they deliver, you get this perspective that these products, these games, are better than what anybody else in the industry is producing.